She's a pathological liar. My father's voice cracked with what sounded like genuine anguish as he pointed at me through the bars of the holding cell. The two police officers looked between us with the weary expressions of people who'd broken up to many family disputes. What Dad didn't know was that the handcuffs binding my wrists were about to become the least of his problems, because in approximately 60 seconds, those officers were going to run my fingerprints and discover that his delusional daughter had a security clearance higher than most senators. My name is Natasha Volkov. I'm 34 years old, and my father had just called the police on me for breaking into his house, the house where I'd been born, where I'd grown up, and where I'd hidden something 8 years ago that I desperately needed to retrieve tonight. Officer, please listen to me, Dad continued. His silver hair disheveled, his expensive pajamas twisted from our struggle in his study. My daughter has been making up stories since she was a child. She claims to work for the government, but she's been unemployed for years. Tonight, she broke into my home, assaulted me when I confronted her, and now she's spinning another elaborate fantasy. Officer Martinez, a stocky woman in her 40s, was filling out paperwork. Sir, we found her in your study at 2 a.m. That's trespassing at minimum. The assault charge depends on it. Wasn't assault, I said quietly from my position on the holding cell bench. I subdued him using minimal force when he tried to grab me. No injuries, no excessive contact. It's documented in my training as appropriate response to civilian interference during an active operation. Dad's face flushed red. You see, this is what I'm talking about. Training. Operations. She watches too many spy movies. Officer, my daughter needs psychiatric help, not jail time. I'm willing to drop charges if she agrees to get evaluated. The younger officer, a rookie named Patterson, whose name tag still looked fresh from the package, was studying me with curious eyes. Ma'am, what were you doing in your father's house? I can't tell you that, I said simply. It's classified. Dad threw his hands up. There, you see, classified. She's been doing this for years. She disappears for months, won't say where she's been, claims she works for agencies that won't confirm her employment. She's even convinced herself that she can't tell her own family what she does because of national security. He made air quotes, his voice dripping with frustrated sarcasm. Martinez exchanged glances with Patterson. Miss Volkov, we're going to need to process you. That means fingerprints, photograph, and a statement. If you can provide proof of employment, or any reason you had legal access to your father's property. I can't provide proof of employment. My work is classified, and I had access to the property because 8 years ago, I hid something in that house that I needed to retrieve tonight. What did you hide? Patterson asked. I can't tell you that either. Dad was pacing now, his slippers scuffing against the linoleum. This is exactly what I mean. She lives in some fantasy world where she's a secret agent. The truth is she's been drifting from job to job, probably dealing with substance issues, definitely dealing with mental health problems. I've tried to help her, but she refuses treatment. The thing was, I couldn't entirely blame him for thinking that. I had disappeared. For months at a time. I had missed his birthday, Christmas, my mother's funeral, 3 years ago, because I'd been in Islamabad preventing a terrorist attack that would never make the news. I had no social media presence, no permanent address he knew about, no way to prove I was anything other than what he believed. A troubled daughter who wasted her potential and lost herself in delusions. Let's just process her, Martinez said with a sigh. Come on, Miss Volkov. She led me to the booking area, a small room with a computer, a camera, and a digital fingerprint scanner. Patterson followed, still watching me with that curious expression. Place your right thumb here, Martinez instructed, pointing to the scanner. I complied, pressing my thumb against the cool glass surface. The scanner beeped, and Martinez turned to her computer to enter the data. What happened next occurred in rapid succession. The computer screen flashed red, an alert sound blared. Martinez's eyes widened as she read whatever appeared on her screen. She immediately reached for her radio, then stopped, her hand frozen in midair. Patterson, she said, her voice carefully controlled. Get the lieutenant. Now, what's wrong? Dad asked from the doorway. What's happening? Patterson was already moving, jogging toward the back offices. Martinez turned to me, her entire demeanor transformed from bureaucratic boredom to something approaching alarm. Ma'am, she said formally. The ma'am had replaced Miss. I noticed. I need you to stay exactly where you are. Don't move, don't speak, don't do anything. Officer Martinez, what is going on? Dad's voice rose. Is there a warrant? Is she wanted for something? Martinez ignored him, her eyes locked on me. We stood in silence for 30 seconds that felt like 30 minutes. Then Lieutenant Harris burst through the door, a barrel-chested man in his 50s with 20 years on the force written in the lines of his face. He looked at the computer screen. His face went pale. He looked at me, then he looked at Martinez and Patterson. Everyone out, he said quietly. Now, except her, Lieutenant, her father, Martinez began. Out. That's an order. Dad tried to protest, but Patterson gently but firmly guided him back toward the main area. Martinez followed, casting one last confused glance over her shoulder. Lieutenant Harris closed the door. The small booking room suddenly felt very claustrophobic. Agent Volkov, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I just got a notification that running your prints triggered an alert that went directly to Langley. I received a call approximately 15 seconds ago from someone who identified themselves as Deputy Director Chen. He used code words I haven't heard since my time with Army Intelligence, and he told me, in very specific terms, that I am to release you immediately, forget I ever saw you, and under no circumstances discuss what appeared on that screen. I stayed silent. There was nothing to say. What appeared on that screen, Harris continued, his voice shaking slightly, was a classification level I didn't know existed. It said CIA. Level 5 clearance. Do not detain, do not question. Release immediately. It also had a phone number with an extension that, when I called it, connected me directly to a very angry deputy director. He ran a hand over his face. Agent Volkov, I've been a cop for 23 years. I've seen a lot of things, but I've never seen a classification that high. That's above congressional oversight. That's above most generals. What the hell are you? Someone who needs to get back to work, I said simply. He nodded slowly. Your father. He really doesn't know. He can't know the kind of work I do if the people I've put away knew I had family, knew their names, their addresses. I let the implication hang. Harris understood immediately. So you let him think you're crazy. Let him think you're a failure. Because it keeps him safe. It's kept him alive for 8 years. That house, the one he lives in IVE, had it under passive surveillance since 2017. When the Kozlov syndicate put a price on my head, he doesn't know that the nice couple who moved in next door are actually bureau assets. He doesn't know his new security system has CIA-grade encryption. He thinks his daughter is a disappointment who breaks into his house in the middle of the night. It's better that way. Jesus Christ, Harris breathed. What were you retrieving from his study? Something I hid during my last deep cover assignment. Insurance, in case things went bad. I need it tonight because things are about to go very bad. He studied me for a long moment. I can't just let you walk out of here without an explanation to your father. You're going to tell him the charges are being dropped due to insufficient evidence. You're going to suggest he get a restraining order if he's concerned. And you're going to recommend he upgrade his home security. I met his eyes. And Lieutenant, in about 6 weeks, you're going to read about a major counterintelligence operation that prevents a cyber attack on the eastern seaboard's power grid. When you do, remember this conversation. He swallowed hard. The cyber attack in the intelligence briefings. The one they told us was a potential threat. It's not potential anymore. It's happening. And I'm one of 3 people in the country who can stop it. I held up my still cuffed wrists, which is why I really need to get back to work. Harris removed the handcuffs with shaking hands. Your father is going to think I'm crazy for letting you go. My father has thought I'm crazy for 8 years. One more night won't hurt. I rubbed my wrists where the metal had left red marks. Thank you for your service, Lieutenant. Both in the Army and here. He led me back out to the main area, where Dad was sitting on a bench, looking exhausted and angry. Martinez and Patterson stood nearby, their expressions confused. Mr. Volkov, Harris said, his voice professional. We're releasing your daughter. There's insufficient evidence to proceed with charges. I recommend you change your locks and consider getting a restraining order if you feel threatened. Dad's face cycled through disbelief, fury, and resignation. So that's it? She breaks into my house, and you just let her go? That's it, sir. I'm sorry. Harris wouldn't meet his eyes. Dad turned to me, his expression crumbling into something that looked like grief. Tasha, please. Whatever you're going through, whatever problems you have, I can help. But you have to let me in. You have to tell me the truth. I wanted to tell him. God, I wanted to explain everything. But I'd seen what happened to agents whose families knew the truth. I'd attended their funerals. I'd watched their children grow up as orphans because someone had used their family as leverage. Dad, I said softly, I know you don't understand. And I know that's hard. But I need you to trust that I'm exactly where I need to be, doing exactly what I need to do. That's not an answer. His voice broke. That's more fantasy, more delusion. Tasha, you're sick. Please, let me help you. I looked at this man who'd raised me, who'd taught me to ride a bike and helped with my homework and walked me down the aisle at my wedding, to a man who died in a car accident that wasn't really an accident. He'd buried his wife and thought he was losing his daughter to mental illness. It was the cruelest form of protection I could offer him, the gift of his ignorance. Goodbye, Dad, I said, and walked toward the exit. Agent Volkov, Harris called after me. I turned. He was holding a manila envelope, the one I'd taken from Dad's study safe. The one that contained 8 years' worth of insurance against the day when my cover got blown. You forgot this in the holding area. Our eyes met. He understood what that envelope meant, what it contained, why I'd risked everything to retrieve it tonight. Thank you, Lieutenant. I walked out of the police station into the pre-dawn darkness. A black sedan was already waiting at the curb, engine running. I climbed into the back seat. Did you get it? Deputy Director Chen asked from the driver's seat. I held up the envelope. Every offshore account, every safe house, every asset I've built over 8 years. If they'd found this during the raid tomorrow, we'd have lost everything. And your father still thinks I'm crazy. I looked back at the police station, where Dad was probably arguing with Lieutenant Harris about incompetent police work. It's better that way. Chen pulled away from the curb. The operation goes live in 4 hours. Are you ready? I opened the envelope, reviewing the documents I'd hidden so long ago. Bank accounts in 12 countries. Properties under 15 different names. Identities that could disappear at a moment's notice. The life of a ghost, preserved in paper and ink. I'm ready, I said. Behind us, my father stood in the police station parking lot, watching the sedan disappear into the darkness. He'd never know that his pathological liar daughter was about to save millions of lives. And I'd never tell him. Because some lies are the deepest form of love.